I let my kids take what they want from my brother's house after his son kept stealing our toys. Now he's crying to our parents that I'm the one with boundary issues. My brother and his family came for a visit last month. My kids and I play with Lego, and we have fun leaving little dioramas around my house. Just silly stuff like a fight between Iron Man and Darth Vader on the Loot Llama. It's just our way of leaving Easter eggs around the house. My nephew really liked them and decided to take a few home. When we noticed they were missing, I asked my brother to bring them back. He said that it was just kids being kids, and that he would them back the next time we saw each other. I saw him for coffee, and I reminded him beforehand that I wanted all our stuff back. He forgot to bring the toys. Okay, game on. We went over to his place for a BBQ. I told my kids that unless all our stuff was returned to us when we got there, literally anything in the house was fair game. Like the godless barbarians they are, they went to town. When we left, I don't think there were any remotes, small electronics, or beer mugs left at his house. I actually had to sneak the dog back into the house before we left. I started getting calls on our way home. I ignored them. When I got home, I returned his calls. He said a bunch of stuff was missing from his house. I said I would check with the kids. He said that I fucking well knew what happened and that he wanted his shit back. I said I would box it up and return it the next time we saw each other, as long as we got our Lego back. He was at my house with my Lego later that evening. He had even accidentally included stuff that wasn't ours. I returned it and his stuff. I told him that this is how we would be dealing with his kid in the future. He is pissed off that he had to make a special trip to return my stuff. My parents think that there is a huge difference between an 8-year-old taking Lego minifigures and a couple of teenagers pillaging their uncle's house. Ita? Update 1. So after my initial post, I thought that was that. I mean, I genuinely thought he'd see the humor in all of this and maybe even admit he should have made sure my Lego figures got back to us. But nah, things have taken an unexpected turn. Here's how it went down since then. A few days after my brother's forced Lego return adventure, he starts texting me about how he hopes I realize the difference between an 8-year-old getting a little souvenir, his words, not mine, and 2 teenagers going full Viking mode on his stuff. I thought he was kidding at first. But no, the guy actually seemed miffed. He went on about how, as the adult in the situation, I should have just let it go and taught the kids to be generous. That one made me laugh, honestly, because the irony was through the roof. He's lecturing me on generosity when his kid literally yoinked our toys and he brushed it off as kids being kids. All right, buddy. I decided to give him a chance to cool off, thinking maybe he just needed a little time to see things clearly. So I ignored the texts and figured it'd blow over. But oh, he wasn't done. Nope. A day later, I get another message. This time, it's a wall of text about respect between siblings and not blowing things out of proportion. He was acting like I'd orchestrated a full-on robbery or something. I replied with something like, well, next time we visit, I'll make sure to just be generous if my kids find anything they want. I thought that would get the point across and maybe lighten things up a bit. Wrong again. 2 days later, I find out from my mom that my brother has been complaining to our parents. He's painting this picture of me as some kind of petty, vengeful villain who's using my kids to punish his family over a few tiny plastic figures. My mom calls me up saying stuff like, maybe you overreacted, and it's different with younger kids, you have to let things slide. Okay, sure, Mom. So just because his kid is 8, he's allowed to pocket anything he wants? I decided to explain that the entire Lego swap was just my way of making a point. Honestly, I thought my mom would understand. She's seen me and my brother squabble over stuff since we were kids, so you'd think she'd have some sense of humor about it. But apparently not. She tells me I should apologize to him and try to restore family peace. I was like, hold up, I'm the one who got robbed here. How am I the bad guy in all this? I get that an 8-year-old taking a few minifigs isn't the end of the world. But if my brother had just said, yeah, he took them, we'll bring them back, this wouldn't have escalated. But no, he decided to double down, tell me I was overreacting, and even tried to downplay it in front of our parents. Classic move. But the kicker? The next part really took it to the next level. A couple of days after the call with my mom, I get a text from my brother. He says he regrets bringing back my Lego and accuses me of dragging family into petty games. Apparently, it was embarrassing for him to come to my place and hand over toys like he was returning stolen art to a museum. He goes on about how it's unfair that his kid is getting labeled as a thief, and he starts throwing in lines like, "You're too old to be playing with toys anyway." That last bit got under my skin, not gonna lie. First off, my kids and I love our little Lego setups, and who is he to decide what's age appropriate? Secondly, if anyone was making this weird, it was him for taking it so personally. So I respond with, "Look, you're the one who didn't take this seriously in the first place. You thought it was funny until it wasn't, right? You wanted me to let it go until the situation was reversed. If anyone dragged the family into this, it was you when you went crying to Mom." I know, maybe not the most diplomatic response, but by this point I was done tiptoeing around his feelings. He doesn't get to tell me how I should feel about my stuff going missing, and he certainly doesn't get to dictate how my kids and I enjoy our own house. A few hours later, I get a message from him, just one sentence. Wow, so it's like that. No apology, no acknowledging that he brushed off our missing toys. Just some dramatic wow, like he's in shock that I didn't just roll over. Fine. Let it be like that. Here's where it takes an interesting turn. I start noticing that my kids' stuff has been missing again. A couple of action figures, some small handheld games, a few books. We're talking small stuff. Nothing super valuable, but enough to be noticeable. At first, I didn't connect the dots. I figured, okay, maybe they left them at a friend's place or something. But then, last weekend, we had a family gathering at my parents' place. Guess whose kid is playing with my son's missing Spider-Man figure and reading one of his lost books? Yep, my nephew. I ask my nephew where he got them, and he just looks at me with this innocent face and says, "Daddy said I could borrow them." So it's not like this was a one-time thing with the Legos. Now it's happening with other toys, and my brother's just handing out permission slips like he's doing the world a favor. I decided to address it right then and there. I walk up to my brother, hold up the Spider-Man figure, and just ask, "Did you know he took this?" My brother barely even flinched, just shrugged and said, "He likes it, so I told him he could borrow it. What's the big deal?" The big deal is that my kid didn't give it to him. This wasn't some friendly toy-sharing situation. He took it, probably knowing his dad would back him up. I'm seeing now that this isn't about a misunderstanding or an innocent mistake. My brother's basically teaching his kid that he can take whatever he wants because it's just toys, and my family's making me out to be the villain for not going along with it. Before leaving, I gathered up the missing toys I could find and made sure my kids had their stuff. On the way home, my older son asked why his cousin gets to take whatever he wants, and that right there confirmed it. I don't want my kids thinking that someone else can just claim their stuff. I want them to know it's okay to set boundaries, and it's not wrong to stand up for themselves. So, here's where we're at. My brother is still salty, and my parents seem convinced that I need to apologize. Meanwhile, I'm wondering if this whole thing is just going to escalate, because I can't keep letting my kids' things disappear. And honestly, I'm not going to back down this time. If he wants to keep trying to turn this into a family issue, I'll play along, but he's going to learn the hard way that this is how it goes both ways. Stay tuned, I guess. Update 2. All right, so here we are. Things escalated way further than I thought they ever would. After the last update, I decided enough was enough. My brother was clearly not getting it, and my parents were fully on his side, which only made things worse. I figured, all right, if he wants to play games, I'll play along. I was going to handle it quietly, set some boundaries, and just avoid any more drama. Unfortunately, he had other ideas. About a week after I took back my kids' stuff from my nephew at the family gathering, I get a text from my brother saying he wanted to clear the air. He suggested we meet up for coffee, just the two of us, to resolve things like adults. Honestly, I didn't have high hopes for it, but I thought maybe he'd finally come around and we could end this. So, I agreed. The meeting started off rough. He jumped straight into how hurt he was that I'd accused his son of stealing, when according to him, it was just a kid wanting to borrow some things. He went on and on about how I'd blown the whole Lego situation out of proportion and how I was holding on to a weird grudge instead of teaching my kids to share. I tried to keep calm and explained once again that I wasn't mad about a few missing toys. It was about the principle of it. My kids are learning that their things matter, that they don't have to give up what they love just because someone else wants it. But no matter how many ways I tried to explain this, he refused to see it that way. He kept pushing, saying stuff like, "It's just toys, man," and Why are you making this into a thing? Finally, I laid it out. I said, look, this isn't about toys anymore. It's about you thinking you can take what you want and telling your kid it's okay to do the same. You're teaching him it's fine to cross boundaries because family will just let it slide. He did not like that. He muttered something under his breath that sounded like, maybe if you had real problems, you wouldn't be so stuck on this. That was it for me. I just got up, told him we were done here, and walked out. He was still shouting something behind me, but I didn't look back. I thought that would be the end of it. I was ready to just put some space between us for a while, let things cool down. But nope, he had to go nuclear. The next day, I get a call from my mom. She's on speakerphone with my dad, and they're clearly upset. Turns out, my brother had called them right after our coffee meeting and spun this whole sob story about how I attacked his parenting, how I was deliberately isolating his son by refusing to let my kids share their toys. My mom told me my brother's wife was devastated and that my nephew had asked why he wasn't allowed to play with his cousin's toys anymore. My mom said I was being too rigid and that it was hurting the family dynamic. I couldn't believe it. Somehow I had gone from being annoyed over a few missing Lego pieces to being the family pariah who doesn't want to share. I tried explaining to them that this was about teaching my kids that it's okay to set boundaries, that they're allowed to say no when they don't want to share. But my parents weren't having it. They were already in forgive and forget mode, saying I needed to be the bigger person and let this go for the sake of family peace. It was exhausting. I could feel them pressuring me to just cave, to pretend none of this bothered me and move on. But here's the thing. I can't just teach my kids one thing at home and then let them watch me get steamrolled by family because it's convenient. So I told my parents, if you're asking me to teach my kids that their boundaries don't matter, I'm not doing it. This isn't about toys anymore. It's about respect. They didn't take it well. My dad actually sighed and said, "You're blowing this out of proportion." And my mom was like, "So what? Are you just never going to talk to your brother again over some plastic toys?" They were completely missing the point. I told them, if he can't respect me or my kids enough to bring back something he took, then yeah, maybe I won't talk to him for a while. I left that conversation feeling more drained than ever, but I was pretty set on giving my family some space. Apparently that wasn't going to be easy, because the next part was absolutely insane. A few days later, I start noticing something strange. My social media is flooded with weird comments from people I don't know, friends of friends, all with messages like, "It's just toys, don't be such a Grinch," or "Teach your kids to share, it's not that deep." Then my wife tells me she got a message from one of her friends asking if we were having family issues. Turns out my brother had posted some long-winded status on his own profile, talking about family values and the importance of sharing. He didn't name us directly, but it was obvious to anyone who knew us what he was talking about. He went on about how some parents teach selfishness and won't let kids bond over shared toys, and he got a ton of sympathy comments agreeing with him. I was furious, but I knew confronting him directly would just add fuel to his pity party. So I just ignored it and kept my focus on our own family. My wife and I had a long talk with the kids, explaining that they shouldn't feel bad for valuing their own things. I could see they felt a bit torn, especially since my brother's kid kept reaching out to them online, asking why they don't want to play with him. It was honestly heartbreaking, and I was beyond frustrated that it had gotten to this point. My kids were getting guilted, my brother was acting like a martyr online, and my parents were acting like I'd destroyed the family over some toys. Finally, a week or so later, my brother reaches out one last time. He sends this long message about how he's extending an olive branch and wants to get the kids together for a weekend at his place. He wrote, "I'm sure the kids miss each other, and it's sad that they're caught in the middle of this." He even added that he wouldn't mind if they wanted to bring a few toys for everyone to enjoy together. That was the last straw. I replied and told him I'm done playing games. I said, if you want to teach your kid that he can just take things from others, that's your choice. But don't drag my kids into it. I ended by saying that until he respects our boundaries, we're taking a break from family gatherings. I was calm, but I made it clear we're not bending on this. So that's it. My parents are still saying I took it too far, and my brother hasn't spoken to me since. Honestly, I think he's shocked I didn't back down this time. It sucks that it came to this, and maybe one day we'll reconcile. But for now, I feel like I did the right thing. I want my kids to know it's okay to stand up for what they value, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. So, to anyone out there dealing with a similar situation, remember, setting boundaries doesn't make you the bad guy. Sometimes family will push those boundaries harder than anyone else, but it's okay to push back. Thanks to everyone who shared advice and helped me through this.